In this lecture, we are going to learn about matchMedia. So what is matchMedia? In CSS, we have media queries to create different style rules for different media types. With GSAP, this made simpler and much easier to animate your website that requires different styles for different media types. So without further ado, let's get started. Inside the container div, create a div with class circle. We will use this circle to demonstrate matchMedia. Head over to index.js and add the circle object that we have just created. Now let us create an object that will initialize matchMedia. So I'm creating this object and giving it a name and it equals gsap.matchMedia. The gsap.matchMedia method creates an instance of the matchMedia class which provides methods and properties for defining media queries conditions and associated callbacks. So to add a media query, we simply call the add method of the matchMedia class. This add method has three parameters. The first one is the condition, the second one is the callback function, and the third one is an optional parameter that will be used to pass reference when we use Angular or React frameworks. So for this example, we will want the circle object to be scaled 3 times when the media width reaches 600 pixels. Within the double quotes, I add max width to 600 pixels. And for next parameter, that is callback function, we will add gsap.to method. And inside, we select the circle object. And for the configuration, we set the scale to 3, so that way it will be enlarged 3 times from its original size. As you can see, I'm adjusting the width of the window. When it reaches the width of 600 pixels, it will be scaled. Another method of the GSAP object is the set method. This will allow us to set properties of the specified object at the initial load of the page. So what I'm going to do for this demonstration is that we want the circle object to be on the center of the screen when it is initialized to the page. Like how we did for the to method, we will use the same procedure inside the set method. Here I am setting x to window.innerWidth by 2. This will place the object at the center horizontally. Y to window.innerHeight by 2. This will place the object at the center vertically, so the combination will result in object being at the center of the page. We can add multiple matchMedia methods. For instance, I want the circle to shrink half to its size when the window size reaches 599 pixels. I will simply add the exact code, but I will change the max width to min width and 600 pixels to 599 and scale to 0.5. Let us test this out by expanding and shrinking the window size of the page. As you can see, it is responding to the style according to the media queries. Let us add another object with class box. Head over to index.html and add another div with class box below the circle. Go back to index.js and initialize this box object. Copy the set method of the circle entirely and paste it below and change the first parameter to box and change the y value to innerWidth by 8. This will place box object above the circle. Just like how we add multiple selectors inside the media queries in CSS, likewise we can also add multiple GSAP methods inside the matchMedia methods. In this example, we want the box also to be expanded 3 times. For that, I'm copying the to method with circle and change the selector to the box object. And inside the min width matchMedia add method, we copy the to method with circle and paste it and replace the circle with the box object. This way it will be shrinked half the times of the original size of the box when we reduce the window size past 599 pixels. Oops, I'm sorry, I added inner width instead of inner height. My apologies. Change the inner width to inner height, and for box change the y values inner height also. Let's add more animation. I want the circle and the box to be swapped in both the media queries. So for that, in the first media query, we will keep the x and y values of both the objects as it is. But for the next media query, we swap the values. That is, we add what were the x and y values of box to the circle and vice versa. We don't need to add the add methods for each media queries. GSAP gives us the flexibility to add everything in one add method. So we are going to remove this add method with min width. The first parameter of the add method, basically it is called the conditions. We can add multiple conditions inside of it. In order to do that, open a curly brace and inside we add the media queries in template strings. Each condition separated by a comma, like how we define the configuration. So the first query for the desktop screen, we will call it isDesktop and we give it a value of max width. To ease the process, we open up a $sign and a curly braces to add a placeholder called breakpoint -1 because we want 599 pixels as the breakpoint, and then concatenate pixels. This way, we will have one variable that can be changed for each media query if we want a different width rather than changing it one by one inside the key value. Next is isMobile to define the min width. Same as how we did for the desktop's value, here we put min width and the breakpoint placeholder and then concatenate with pixels. The values won't work if we simply put them like this. So to use these conditions, we wanted to add an object. In our case, we call it context inside the callback's parameter. This context object will enable us to access these conditions. Add a return callback function at the end of the block. We will discuss more about this at the end of this lecture. Now back to the conditions. We deconstruct the values out of the context object. So let curly braces and then isDesktop, isMobile equals context.conditions, which will access the conditions we have just supplied as the first parameter. To use this, I'm going to the scale property and use ternary operation to check if this is a desktop screen. If it is, then we will scale it to 3. If not, then we will scale it to 0.5. Now go to the method containing the box object. Do the same operation. Let us test this out. It's working as we expected. With regards to x and y values, the x values remains same because we are not touching the horizontal movement. We are only focusing on the y movement. Hence we add the same ternary operation to swap the values. If it is a desktop screen, then it remains unchanged. If it is not, then we will put window.innerHeight by 8. Do the same process in the method containing the box. Let us test this out. It's working. Perfect. Now regarding the return callback that we just before touched upon, this will be executed when the condition changes. So to demonstrate this, go to index.html and add a div with class label and give it a random text. Let's say breaking point. The idea is to display here the current screen type. If it is a desktop, then it will change the breaking point to text saying desktop screen. Otherwise, it will display mobile screen. And coming back to index.js, create an object for it. Heading inside the return callback, add label.innerText equals sDesktop question mark. If it is a desktop screen, then display desktop screen. Otherwise, display mobile screen. Let's test this out. Perfect. It is working as expected.